This is Kerrigan and Company. Banking shouldn't feel transactional. It should feel personal. At Rockland Trust Bank, we take the time to get to know what matters for your business so we can support what comes next, not just today, but for years to come. Because when you have a banker who knows your business, understands your goals, and sees your vision, that partner can make all the difference. Come bank where your relationship matters. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Go to rocklandtrust.com for more information. Member FDIC. We're focused on mental health on this episode of Kerrigan and Company.
Kerrigan and Company is here for you. Yes, Kerrigan and Company is here for you.
Welcome, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. Great to have you with us today. And I am really, really happy to have our first guest, who, of course, is keeping me company today. This is a woman that I have known for a number of years. Our paths crossed here and there, but we never worked in the same place. But I'm certainly happy that we are sharing this desk today. It is so great to have JC Monahan with me from NBC10. Great to see you.
Thank you. We may not have worked at the same station, but I watched you all the time because you watch the people you want to be like.
Well, that is a very kind thing of you to say.
That's true.
I have to tell you, it is true. I watched all the time too, and you were always, when I was at Fox in the mornings, you were on the mornings over at WCVB. And so I would watch you in the green room while I was like running in and out, so we were always checking to see what you guys were covering and what you were doing and whatever.
And vice versa.
Yeah. I think something that a lot of people, JC, have forgotten about you is that you're a meteorologist.
People do forget that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have not forgotten it, but I don't think very many people think of you as a meteorologist.
No, because it was... I left on-air meteorology in 2014, I think it is. So I get now a lot of people who would be like, I used to watch you before school, and that's how they sort of remember. But it was a huge part of my career. And the best part now is, you're never not a meteorologist. So the group that we have at NBC lets me go in and play a little bit so I can talk weather with them. We just had a tornado warning, earlier. So I can kind of dip my toe in but not have the stress that they have.
Absolutely. Isn't that funny? I'm not surprised that you'd say that, though, because of all the meteorologists I know, they're sort of addicted to weather behind the scenes, no matter what. I think that does get in your blood, so I'm not surprised.
Without question, and wanting to know the new research that's out there and what are you looking at today? And there's so much happening now that wasn't around when I was doing meteorology. So it's just fascinating on all levels. But the best part is having a group that doesn't mind if I, enter their world and sit down and just be like, so what you doing? Or how much snow are you going for? And what, so it's a way to still have fun and play with it.
Super. How's life at NBC10?
It's good. It's busy. It's busy for all of us. I mean, World Cup is here, 250th anniversary. Sail Boston is coming up. It's like this month. I mean, then forget your personal life with graduations and dance recitals, and it's like your head spins. So I just had to ask what day it was. I'm like, right, Tuesday. Right. I'm not always, able to keep it all in check, but it's a lot of fun and a lot of excitement there because it's figuring out who we are, how we are going to play in this market. And that was the excitement of going over there. Because as you know, that Bostonians we're loyal, to the things that we love. We don't necessarily love change. And to have NBC as a network come in and be like, we're going to start something new and let's see what happens was fascinating to me because I know as a lifelong Bostonian, I'm like, good luck to you because, to get people to change their habits, to understand where we are, how to find us,
Absolutely.
And get to know people who are on the air and start to realize that we're part of the community and we're here for you. I mean, all of that takes time and a lot of energy. And that to me is the excitement of going to work, figure out
I love it.
Who that is and how that works.
Yeah. We are the community of Natalie and Chet.
Oh my God.
Let's just face it,
Two of
right?
my favorite humans.
Right. And to this day, right? People still, would tell you that was their favorite team no matter what.
It will never be another Chet and Nat, and I grew up with Chet and Nat. They were in my house every day.
Absolutely.
And so, to work with Chet, which I did for a brief time at New England Cable News, and then to work with Natalie when I went to Channel 5 was one of those out-of-body experiences. Sure. And then Dick Albert, I was like, okay, well, I can just end now.
Right.
This is everything, So they were, and their generosity as leaders in the newsroom, to guide you and teach you and support you. You just couldn't ask for more. You really couldn't. Absolutely. They're just wonderful.
Yeah. I'd never worked with any of the three of them, but knew all three of them and got that same vibe from all of them and never spent time in the same newsroom with them. So I absolutely can understand
like a family.
That. Yeah.
If we see each other out, that's the other thing I tell people. I'm like, we're not competitive as individuals.
Right.
We meet each other out. We know you. You know me. We know you. We may never have been in the same room, but we're all kind of on the same page.
You bet. 100%.
Yeah, I love that.
We brought JC here today for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is just to see her and to hear all about her and to have her.
She's realizing it was a mistake.
No.
And we're only a few seconds in.
No, that is not true. That is not true. But we were very much looking forward to having you come in to set the tone for us and to help me and help our listeners and our viewers walk through the issue of mental health. You have not been shying away for the last few years about talking about some of the struggles that you have dealt with. I love the idea that earlier this summer and this spring, you were doing a lot of work related to just trying to bring this subject up, help people with the stigma. That's in addition to the many other things that you have already done. But I'm hoping that maybe you won't mind just sort of walking these listeners and these viewers through the experience that you had, and then you were brave enough to come forward as a public figure and write about it in Boston Magazine. And share your story. That first, let me just commend you. That was a hard thing to do.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it was, the toughest time of my life, obviously, and I made major changes all at the same time. And, leaving Channel 5, which was my home for almost 17 years, I felt like I was graduating, that I was moving on to something new. But my heart and my love for them, but now I'm entering this new world. And so my feet aren't underneath me necessarily yet because I'm trying to figure out just like I said, like when you graduate college, well, what is it like when you're out in the real world, And then I did file for divorce and I have 2 kids and they were only 5 and 10. And so you put all of this into one basket. And so all the coping mechanisms that I had up to that point weren't working anymore. There was too much, I had moved a bunch of times trying to figure out the best place for the girls that would work. And so it was a very unsettled time. And it got to the point where I didn't know how to handle the depression. And then anxiety was new. I didn't have that before. Mm-hmm. So this anxiety could be crippling. And I didn't know what to do with that either. So you're trying to balance these 2 really impactful mental illnesses without really knowing how to do it and how to even express it to anyone. Mm-hmm. So nobody really knew anything. I'm
not sure that you could actually define, I am depressed or I feel anxiety. I'm not sure how you define that.
Not until you understand it for yourself.
Right.
So it's learning the language and learning how to communicate it that makes a huge difference to me and
Sure.
I think to many people, but it's not taught, so it's not the same as like, well, I sprained my ankle, so I'm going to hobble for a while and I can't walk and I can't do that. It's not the same. So then how do you function? Well, there was nothing healthy about the way I was handling it because I was a go, 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 don't ask for help, and I'm very private. Mm-hmm. So there were no discussions with people about what was happening. It just, I think my friends and family knew that she's not happy, but at the same time, well, look, her whole world is totally changed. I mean, nobody really thought of it as something bigger than that. But the article that I wrote talked about the use of Xanax that was correctly prescribed, and it can be a very helpful tool in handling anxiety when used correctly. But it also, for me, became the crutch. So, one pill would give me that lowering of the anxiety, and now I can get up, and now I can function. Well, one isn't always enough. So now it's 2 that I need. On top of that, the mind-body connection, which is so real, and so much research still needs to be done. And if you don't know anything about it, I beg that you go and read about it, is that I have ulcerative colitis, but during this time, it was flared.
Of course it was,
Of course
right?
Right. So the things I had under control, the UC was dormant, and the depression was completely managed because it started as postpartum after my first child. But it was all very in control and steady, to the point that I really didn't think about that I had these things. They were maintained, and they were. So then you blow up your world, and things change. So ulcerative colitis brought me to my knees, because now, for those who have it, it's a really debilitating physical disease. And it's one that is very hard to talk about because it's not pretty. And it's, for us who have to look a certain way, it makes it 10 times harder, because I didn't want anything around my stomach because the pain was so much. So how do I put something together that looks good on air and pull myself together and mentally be there and also deal with
this physical issue that's happening.
Exactly. So that's where things went downhill, and I call it the crash of 2018. There's no other cute way to spin it, but that's where it got out of control, and finally people realized it. And the article talks about the day that it sort of came to light. And I had taken Xanax, and I honestly don't know how many, and it wasn't on purpose. It was by my bed, which, by the way, I never used to keep it by my bed. It was always in the drawer in the bathroom. But for whatever reason that day, maybe I walked around looking for water or something. Anyway, it ended up by my bed. The only thing we can assume is halfway through the night, I must have taken more. And my friend called, I pick up the phone, and she's like, "What the heck is wrong with you? I'm not talking coherently." And she didn't like that, obviously. So she sent a friend to my house, and I was fast asleep. But there's a bottle of pills next to me, and you're having a hard time waking me up, and so we don't know what's going on.
Absolutely.
So I did end up going to the ER, and they didn't. I woke. They just let me, wear off. They didn't have to do anything. So I always say, technically, I wasn't in danger, so to speak, but it was just, okay, the Band-Aid's been ripped off. Here's how I've been coping. It could have been terrible.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful that
the next
it's
time
not.
could have been much, much worse.
Absolutely. And totally for the exact opposite reason, which is I was doing everything possible to keep going, and there's nothing more I want in this life to be the best mother ever.
Sure.
The idea of messing that up or leaving is absolutely never, absolutely not even in the realm. But it could have happened based on the poor choices I was making to be the good mom, the good employee, the good friend, all of those things. I will tell you this. So I come from a super private family, very quiet, Irish, just very quiet. And at the end of the article, it says, if you or anyone you love is thinking about suicide, help is available. And immediately my mom is like, they know you weren't suicidal, right? I mean, I was like, Mom, everybody's journey is different. It's has to be there to remind people that help is there. But she was so proud of everything. That was the only thing that I knew bothered her, to think that would ever be a possibility for me, which she knew wasn't, but she didn't think it was clear enough. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk more about this, and we're going to talk about it with some other guests as well. And then we will ultimately talk about how you've coped and where you are now. But I do want to say one thing. It almost feels to me unfair to say that you were making bad choices. You were making the choices that you felt at that time you had to make. To take care of everything and everyone, which is part of must be part of the healing process and the mending process on the other side, learning that you don't have to work for everybody else.
100%.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that for like reframing that.
Yeah.
It was the choices I were, making to try to keep going and learning that I can't do it all by myself.
Right.
And I am a perfectionist. I always thought reasonably so, because I know there is no such thing as perfection, but the voices in my head that I think I had more of an outlet for when I was married wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was me, myself, and I talking to me, myself, and I. And we're not a great conversationalist.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're saying
that.
some things that are like not supportive,
right,
not great. And then how can you not believe that
Absolutely.
after a while?
You bet. You bet. JC Monahan is my guest today, and she's keeping me company. We're going to continue this conversation about mental health, and we're going to get back to JC's story toward the end of the broadcast. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. We've got another guest coming our way. Everybody stay with us. This is Kerrigan and Company. Some banks focus on transactions. At Rockland Trust, we focus on people. Relationships come first because financial success isn't built in a single meeting or a single moment. It's built over time by listening and showing up, by being in your corner through every stage of life or business. Come bank where your relationship matters. Rockland Trust, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
This dazzling high-energy production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat is a family fun musical of biblical proportions. July 8th through July 19th at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater. Tickets at nsmt.org.
Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. Great to have JC Monahan from NBC10 keeping me company today. And I'm very excited about our next guest. As we said, today we're talking about mental health, and JC's kind enough to share her story, and we're going to talk more about that. Our next guest, we actually found our next guest on social media because he has a campaign that is so impactful, JC. I've never heard his voice until just a moment ago when we just did a voice check, because he does a lot of holding up of signs and Post-its and all kinds of things that make you think. They really do. All part of his mental health journey. He's an advocate at this point. Recklessly Alive is his, he has a book, and that is his website. This is Sam Eaton. Sam, good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to explain to JC, because I've done such a terrible job of doing so, about this campaign that you have, that you don't speak very much, but you certainly pack a big punch.
Yeah, I accidentally became a mental health advocate. I started my career as a public school teacher. I was teaching music, K through 12, and choir. And in our Minneapolis school district, we had 4 deaths by suicide in one school year. We had 2 students, a teacher, and a principal. That's something I had struggled with in my early 20s, but had never talked about or ever been open about. And I definitely didn't want to. I still, many days, don't want to be the person telling the stories of the hardest days of my life. But I just knew I had to do something. I didn't know what that could be. And over the last 10 years, it's really grown into a lot of positive messages on social media. I do a lot of speaking, and now my 3rd book just came out.
Yeah.
That's incredible. When you write about your books, can you just give me like a synopsis of how that developed, the first book to the second to the third?
Absolutely. The first book just took a quick 7 years. It was almost not a book at all. But it took a long time for me to learn, how to tell that story in a reasonable way. The first book is called Recklessly Alive. It is about my attempt happens in the middle. The first half is what kind of leads a person to feel that way. And then the second half is things I would have missed and things I've learned along the way. My second book is called Healing Out Loud. It is about becoming an advocate. It's about, I thought the world would really lean in and love me if I started talking about this. And it's like, oh no, there's a big stigma, actually. I was a little naive there, that there's a lot of people who are really quite angry and scared when you start talking about mental health. But it's the best thing I ever did for myself, living a life of authenticity, of deciding you know what, this is my story. I'm not going to let other people shame me for it. I'm proud of how far I've come and the work that I've done on my mental health. And then this new book is called You Can Do This, and it's actually a daily reader. So each day is an encouragement. Each day has a theme that has really helped me in my mental health, things like self-talk, self-worth, purpose, connection. All those lessons I wish someone had given 23-year-old Sam boiled down to just bite-sized daily little inspirations and affirmations.
Well, let's go back to 23-year-old Sam. And I know we don't need to dwell, but, it had been a tough childhood. There had been moments up and down most all of your life. In fact, you were somebody, it sounded like to me, who you didn't know any other life. That was just being alive. You felt depressed. At times you felt anxious. That was just who you were.
Well, nobody ever talked to me about what depression is or what depression feels like. We know about 1 in 6 people in the U.S. will struggle with depression. About 1 in 5 will struggle with mental illness at some point in their life. And so it's very common. And all the research shows that talking about this makes it much more likely someone will seek help, and doesn't make it any more likely that they may attempt or make a negative choice. So it's okay to talk about, and we just have to learn how to talk about it. But 23-year-old Sam, 14-year-old Sam had no idea what I was struggling with. I thought it was just me. I thought something was wrong with the way that I was made or the way I was created. But the truth was that I had very typical depression. And like most people, it took 8 to 10 years before I started to get help. And absolutely the trauma was a part of that. I didn't know what to do with the trauma. But for some people, it really is just how they were made. It's just their brain is sick and they needed to get help. And that was my story too.
That's what I always say, and I've taught my girls this, which is mental health is no different than the physical health below the neck. So getting a doctor, and they do have both, to understand that how important both are, because there is no health without good mental health.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, a lot of our advice around mental health sounds like, oh, just cheer up or get over it, right? But
right. Shake it off. Right.
I want people to talk about it like the way that you would with cancer. Depression can be very fatal. We lose almost 50,000 people a year in the U.S. who take their own life. That's about a person every 12 minutes. So this is that serious that we need to talk to it on that level. So we wouldn't tell someone with cancer to just hope it gets better, right? We would want them to see the best doctors. We would take care of them. We would drop off meals. And so one of my life missions is that we keep talking about it with that level of severity, because for some of us, it is that serious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I joke that there is no Hallmark card for this, the way there is for everything else. But what do you say, and I've heard this, and it's upsetting to me when I hear it, but it also shows me how much more education needs to happen. Suicide is selfish. That's what I'll hear. Oh, they're just thinking about themselves. They don't care about other people. It's a selfish thing to do.
I absolutely understand people who say that. And usually it's people who've lost someone. And if you've lost someone this way, I've heard from lots of families that it's a wound that doesn't heal for a very long time because you wanted to help and maybe you didn't get the chance to help. But for all those people, I say, it's like, if you could feel the amount of pain I was in for just 5 minutes, like pain that's so intense, like you don't really care what happens to your friends and family. Like, I don't think you'd say it was selfish. I think you'd say, oh, I understand, because suicide at its most basic level is just when your pain is higher than your ability to cope. That's it. Most people don't actually want to go through with any of those actions. They just don't know how to deal with all of these really big emotions and all of the pain that it feels for them just to get through the day. But the good news is there's so much help and hope now, maybe more than ever, for people who feel like I felt. And so the first step is just start opening up. That can be a primary care doctor. Maybe that's a therapist. Maybe that's just a friend, a coworker, a family member, but just letting people in a very little way and start taking little steps towards feeling better.
You both have mentioned the word stigma. So do you think, Sam, over this period of time that you have been so open about your mental health journey, do you think the stigma has gotten any better?
I think we're more willing to talk about it. I think that part of the stigma has gotten better. I think we have a long way to go on how to support people and how to actually, what that actually looks like. I think it still makes people very uncomfortable if I am authentic about my trauma or things I've been to. I'm talking like in my real life, my day-to-day life, like in the workplace. Right. It still makes people very uncomfortable. And I hear this all the time. It's like, well, we don't know what to do or say, so we don't do anything. And that's actually the worst thing that you can do. You don't have to know what to do or say, but just do something like, hey, I don't understand this, but I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. You can drop off a meal. You can help them with just a basic task. Maybe it's laundry or an errand. Just those little things that show your care, you're with them, you're trying to help them and lessen that burden on them.
Mm-hmm. Hey, JC, let me ask you this, and then Sam can follow up. Does one recuperate Or is it like alcoholism? And once someone has mental health issues, maybe you're better and you can live with it, but you always have this underlying.
I think it depends on what mental illness we're talking about. With depression, my understanding is some people it's situational. You know, they've lost a spouse, a loved one, and they sink into a depression and they need the help at the time. That doesn't mean necessarily they are a depressed person or this will be with them the rest of their lives. And then there are people like me who have a depression that is part of my DNA. It's the chemicals in my brain. It was the way I was born. So now that I know that, yes, I have to live with that every day. But I think what's so important and what Sam, I'm hoping that, you know, the combination of people like you and I is that it isn't who I am, right?
Right.
No different than anything else.
Right.
Yes, it was a struggle at times, just like any other diagnosis that you may get, but you can live with it and it just becomes sort of underlying nothing.
Right.
If you're handling it well
Absolutely.
and you have the resources and you know how to manage it day to day. Because the one thing I think scares a lot of people, Sam, I don't know if you feel the same way, is the mentally ill, that's the end of it. Like, they can't get better. Can you trust them? Will they show up? What kind of person are they? Because they don't understand the brain and how this all interacts with your day-to-day life.
Absolutely. So well said. So we know from the research about 75% of people will feel better in 3 to 6 months with some consistent and different types of treatment. I, like you, have a fun little treatment-resistant depression. So that just means it's like, oh no, it's a lot harder to manage. But I see in my work, probably the biggest obstacle is people who are in their own way. They have decided for themselves, this will never work. They talk in absolute phrases. You know, therapy will never help me. This will never help me. No one can help me. And that's our brain's way of stopping us from, it's scary to get help. It's scary to start opening up that window. But that's one of the best gifts we can give ourselves or other people. And I always try to interrupt those phrases with yet or but. So you might say, wow, this isn't working for me yet, but I'm going to try one more type of therapy. I'm going to try one more exercise or thought pattern or something. And that's how it stacks up over 10, 15 years. It kind of sounds like maybe your experience is similar. It's like you keep trying and you find those little things that work for me. Journaling does not work for me. Everyone tells you to journal. I hate it.
I can't stand journaling. No.
My brain's already telling me all these things. I don't want to write it out too. So like the beauty is like we all get to figure out what helps us. And everybody listening, we all have mental health to take care of. This isn't just like a mental illness thing. Like we all have mental health to take care of, and just finding our own way and our own journey through that.
And I would just like to tag on to that is that even when you get it under control and you're living well, if it pops back in a way because of situational things or whatever, you have to still be open to, well, maybe things have to be tweaked a little bit. You know, my dad passed away and it's like, keep an eye on me. You know what I mean? Maybe the dose has to come up just a little bit for just a little while, offset whatever chemically is going on that, you know, is, again, more situational, but never in those moments think, oh, I beat it and now I'm done. Yep. You know, you're going to have to just ride it through your life and know that it's like anything else.
Sure. Both of you, talk to me about who is the individual who needs to seek out help? Who is that person?
I think everybody can improve their mental health. I think our world is crazy a bit at times, especially like I don't think we're supposed to hear every bad thing that happens in our news cycle to 8 billion people. Like I really think the world and technology has changed the way that we process the world around us. So I think everybody should seek help. But if you are having any sort of passive or active suicidal thoughts. So passive is like, I don't want to be here. I wish I didn't exist, or I want a way out. That's our brain's alarm system. We don't have to believe those thoughts. Those things aren't true. We don't have to believe everything we think. But that's a way that our brain is saying, oh, I'm overloaded. My brain is, this is more than I can handle. We need a little bit more help. So absolutely, if you're having any sort of those thoughts, it's time to just open that door a little bit. Open to one person. Start the opportunity of, hey, you could feel a lot better than you are today, and let's get you some help so that you can.
And I think also understanding who you are and your triggers and what happened to you in life. And it's not that you had a traumatic, I didn't have a traumatic childhood. There wasn't one instance that sent me over the edge. But having those dialogues with the therapist where you're setting aside time just for yourself to focus on whatever issues of that time you want to talk about. And the more I got to know me and understanding why I react to things the way I do, the influences that were in my life at different times, that alone made me a healthier, happier person. Sure. And I am much more aware of why I react the way I do to certain things. So even for those, forget the medicine for just a moment. There is something about just understanding yourself. And that's why with my girls, my older has anxiety, and Sam, I hope you're finding this too. That generation is so much more open about talking about, they go to therapy or whatever. So my daughter had a therapist to talk to at a young age because she had anxiety, and my youngest is doing great, but I introduced her to a therapist so she understood this is available to you, and I don't want you to be scared of it. Right. So sit down and just get to know him. And she did, and she said, well, it's great. Now I know what it's like, and I know he's there if I need it, and off she went. Yeah. But it's, so take away that scariness, so if she's 20 or 30 or 40, she'll know, okay, that is a resource that's there for me, that helped my mom, that helped my sister. I've seen it. It's not scary. I can reach out. Right.
Sam, we're unfortunately running out of time, which I hate. But I do want to ask you about Recklessly Alive and about you on social media and what it is that you hope to achieve there.
Mostly, it's just an account that I needed when I was at my lowest. It is just like my book. It's a friend every day, just whispering quiet encouragement, saying, hey, you can do this, right? Like, no matter what you're facing, our brains love to say this is impossible. When I was at my lowest, I had $90,000 of student loan debt. I had been through a recent breakup. I was drinking a lot. I just felt hopeless. It wasn't a life that I wanted to live. And I just needed a friend with me in it every day, just a little quiet voice saying, hey, I've been there. I get it. It feels impossible, but you can do this. You've got it. Just believe in yourself. Take those little tiny steps each day, and you will feel better. And that's my hope, to be that to as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job. I want you to know. And tell everybody again how they can find you.
Absolutely. I'm Sam Eaton. I'm at Recklessly Alive on all social media. RecklesslyAlive.com is our website.
There you go. It's good, Sam. You're doing a great thing.
I'll be following you right after this.
So much. Thank you.
Sam, thank you for being part of the show. Great to have met you. Thank you very, very much. Okay. All right, stay with us, everyone. This is Kerrigan & Company. If you're tired of endless swiping, superficial chats, and first dates that go nowhere, it might be time for something different. Allure Matchmaking offers a refined, confidential, and human-centered approach to finding love. For more than 2 decades, executive matchmaker Jill Vander has coached and personally hand-selected matches for successful, discerning singles. No dating apps, no public profiles, just curated, meaningful introductions with people who truly align with your goals, values, and lifestyle. If you're ready to meet someone of your echelon, visit AllureMatchmaking.com and level up your dating life. Shorts, dresses, beach days, and yes, legs on display. If those tiny red, blue, or purple veins have been bothering you, now's the perfect time to treat them. The experts at Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa in Beverly want you to know that spider vein treatments are quick, minimally invasive, and designed to visibly fade unwanted veins with little downtime. My friends at Sienna say most of their clients are surprised by how easy the process is. Set up an appointment and get rid of those spider veins once and for all. Go to SiennaAesthetics.com. This segment of Kerrigan & Company is brought to you by the North Shore Music Theater. See Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat playing July 8th through the 19th. Tickets at nsmt.org. Welcome back, everybody. J.C. Monahan keeping me company today, and we're continuing our conversation about mental health. Very happy to have with us Dr. Ashned Carney. She is a board-certified psychiatrist from Mass General Brigham. And Dr. Ash, it's great to have you here. And you do go by Dr. Ash. I don't want anybody to think I'm being disrespectful.
That's right. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. First thing I'm going to ask you is, we've been having this conversation about mental health. Are you seeing more people more openly than you did maybe when you started your practice?
Absolutely. I started practicing beyond residency about 15 years ago or so, and there's no question that there's a higher rate of mental illness. For instance, more than 10 years ago, the rate of diagnosed depression was 1 out of every 10 individuals. Now, 10 years later, it's 1 out of every 5 individuals. At the same time, people are talking about this. They're talking about this on TV. They're talking about this on podcasts. They're talking about this on social media. And so that stigma, the prejudice, the stereotypes, the attitudes and beliefs that people have about mental illness is definitely changing.
That's good news. I mean, that's great.
It absolutely is. And how do you help, because you clearly are, by seeing an increase in your practice, get people to understand what it's like to go in and start that journey? Because it's the first step, I feel like, is the hardest for many people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most important steps that people can take is opening up to a trusted individual, right? The friend, the teacher, the person that they trust in the workplace. That's the step that people take that helps them feel less alone. And I think that that's one of the most powerful steps that we take in treatment, is recognizing that what you're going through is something that you can get help with and that is perfectly normal and treatable.
I think that's I don't love social media for a number of reasons, but I do love it for this, because there is a way to connect with somebody and be a little bit anonymous and sort of get the ball rolling by reading someone's blog or being a part of that community. That I'm hoping, does that lead them to someone like you?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does, because it's reducing the stigma and it's also normalizing what people are feeling. Another piece of this too is that when you're feeling a certain way, right, like with depression, people don't always feel persistently sad. Sometimes they feel exhausted. Sometimes they feel that they're enduring life more than really living it. Sometimes they feel that they just can't enjoy the things that they used to enjoy. One of the things that I most commonly hear people say is, I don't feel like myself. And so when you see somebody else's story, you recognize that you're different, when maybe before you got really used to that feeling over the years, right? And that can really help with that sense of insight and a self-awakening that can really push people to seek treatment.
I want to go back to my original question, because I'm fascinated by this and the idea that you're seeing more people in your practice. And now you gave us that stat about depression. Are people more depressed now than they were, or are we just more open to talking about it?
There's definitely been an increase in the rate of mood disorders, including depression, but also anxiety. More than 10 years ago, the rate of anxiety occurred at 32% of individuals in the U.S. Now it's up at 43%.
That's awful.
And
That's
we've
awful.
been through a lot. We've been through a lot, right? Our brains didn't evolve to be able to cope with the constant stress that we're now exposed to, right? In prehistoric times, when that part of our brain, that threat detection system, we call it the amygdala, it evolved so that we could forage for food and escape an immediate danger. Now we're exposed to stress 24/7. Right? Think about it. All the news events, sociopolitical uncertainty, having to be on 24/7, digital connection, balancing work and life, financial stressors. I could go on and on and on. And our brains, that threat detection system is so activated that the part of our brain responsible for regulating our mood and being able to disengage from negative events, that's just not working the same way.
You have to find the outlet.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where raising kids in this age, I find incredibly difficult, because they have that in the palm of their hands. Like, thank God it wasn't around when I was a kid. I didn't want to know I wasn't being invited to parties. I didn't want to know how uncool I was. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't need it in my face all the time. And so the stress and anxiety of what you have access to now, it's very hard to escape.
Yeah, it's a great point. I have 2 boys, 7 and 8.
So
I think about that all the time. All the time, no question. I think it's something that our society and culture is now beginning to understand, right? As you mentioned earlier, social media, digital connection, it can help us with a sense of connectivity. It can build community, right? At the same time, this idea of problematic social media usage, that's now a concept. And recognizing that it can lead to social comparison, that it can play a role in depression or anxiety is so critical in the latest research.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be so alienating. It really can. Everyone on social media is living their best life, and it's hard to explain that to a 10-year-old. Quite frankly, it's hard to explain it to someone my age, which I won't say out loud, but it is hard. It's hard even for someone like me. Let's talk a little bit about what you, before we got on the air, you were saying, I really want to talk a little bit about suicide. Yeah. And some of the steps that can be taken if you're starting to have these feelings. I'm hoping you can talk to us about that. And I would love for you to talk to us about individuals who have attempted suicide and fortunately have not gotten to the end, and how they can rebuild on the other side.
Yeah, great question. So first I want to mention that if anybody listening to this, watching this, is experiencing suicidal thoughts, try, if you can, to open up to a trusted individual, seek professional mental health, or consider calling or texting 988, which is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's available 24/7, both in Canada and the U.S.
Can I just jump in 1 second before we keep talking? Can you just tell me what happens when someone calls 988? Because I think there's a fear, too, of someone going to come knocking on my door. They're going to have to tell report it to someone. So just, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I'm just curious. Can you just tell people just a little bit about what happens when someone picks up on the other side?
The key element is that you're connected to a crisis counselor that you can talk to openly and honestly. And in addition to having that conversation, they can also help connect you to additional resources and supports. So the key is acting like that lifeline, that person who is listening there so that you're not alone, but also creating that bridge to additional support.
But do they have to fear anything in that call? I've heard people say, well, if I talk to somebody, I don't want them getting the police knocking at my door, telling me I'm in danger, in other words, escalating the situation.
Yeah. So these are individuals who are trained. Every year, more than 14 million people have the thought that they want to commit suicide. More than 2 million people attempt. And last year, nearly 49,000 individuals died from suicide. But there is a big difference amongst all those three. So that concept of triaging and understanding what that person needs at that time is very different from contacting the police or having somebody show up at your house. That next step is treatment. And that doesn't have to mean that somebody shows up here.
And I interrupted your question about if somebody is thankfully unsuccessful in the attempt, I believe you were asking, how do they sort of move forward?
Right, exactly. How do you move forward?
Yeah. So the key part of treatment is first self-awareness, right? Like understanding what you've been going through. One of the things that was really meaningful for me when you talked about this in your article, JC, was understanding what is your new normal, right? Like recognizing that the feelings you've been feeling, you don't have to hide them or push them down anymore. So that step of insight and self-awareness and recognizing that this is a medical condition that is highly treatable is so key. That second step is treatment. Right? What does that look like for people? What we know to be evidence-based when it comes to major depressive disorder, which is the psychiatric condition most closely associated with suicide, is both therapy and medication management, one or the other or a combination. Both approaches are evidence-based when it comes to major depressive disorder. So engaging in that therapy. Part of what happens in depression is that People have changes in their reward circuits related to energy, related to motivation, related to feeling pleasure. But they also have changes in the part of the brain that's responsible for keeping their mood even and interpreting negative events. So oftentimes people can have underlying thoughts, I'm not worthy, I'm a terrible person, the self-criticism. So helping people through therapy to question those underlying thoughts, and then, if necessary, considering medication management, which again really acts on the brain-based element of these diseases.
Mm-hmm. What's the reoccurrence of people who fail at suicide? How frequently do they try again?
Yeah, so I don't have that exact number off the top of my head,
right.
But it is quite common that people do, particularly in a major depressive disorder that is recurring, consider suicide again.
Yeah, which is so unfortunate because it feels like that first time is such a cry for help, please.
But if no one is listening,
right.
If for whatever reason, but also, Dr. Ash, I don't know, I have not, or to my knowledge, know anybody who has tried and been unsuccessful with it, and how they sort of get over whatever shame they associate with that. Because it's one thing to say, like, I have depression and anxiety, but when you have taken action on that, how to get them mentally to say, it was a bad moment and you're still here, and not to let the shame or stigma carry them. I just wonder how much does that push you into another attempt for whatever reason.
Yeah. Shame is such an important word, and I also want to distinguish that from stigma, right? Because stigma is coming from the society, the stereotypes or the prejudices that people place on a particular diagnosis or attribute that somebody may have. But shame is that internal feeling that someone has that is negative and makes somebody want to hide or cover themselves. And, because there's that element of wanting to hide, I do think when people are honest and open and talk about this, and they make that first step with treatment, or they talk about it openly, as you did, right? That is such an incredible step in reducing both the shame and stigma, because we are normalizing this and recognizing that these are medical conditions.
Sure.
I think about somebody who might have chest pain, right? And let's say it radiates to the left arm, which is like characteristic of the heart attack. If they opened up to their family about having those symptoms, would they pause to say, oh, you got to go get help? You got to go to the ED right now.
Of course.
Would we pause with that? No. Nobody would pause, and nobody would hesitate to talk about it.
Right.
No.
Doctor, let's address in these last moments individuals out there who could be the support system.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are we looking for, and what do we do if we think we've stumbled upon it?
Sure. So the first thing to consider is a change from someone's baseline. So I mentioned that particularly for individuals who function really well, right? They're showing up to work, they're showing up to their kid's soccer game, they're meeting all the expectations of their family and their community. It's not necessarily the case that that person will look really down. They might be irritable, they might be on edge, they might have low energy, they might complain that they're chronically exhausted. So you want to look for that change from the baseline. Are they no longer showing up to things? Are you noticing that they have even lower energy than ever? Are they mentioning that they have problems with sleep or appetite or focus? It's the change from the baseline.
Okay.
The other piece of this is when you're talking to people, right? And this is another step that we can take in normalizing all of this with our friends and family, is the first step is really noticing. Oh, hey, you seem different. Is everything okay? Second step, ask.
Yeah.
This is the most important step when it comes to depression and it comes to suicidal thoughts. Ask. Is something going on? How are you doing? The next step is listen. I notice this because I'm a psychiatrist. It is so hard to listen deeply. It is so hard to listen deeply. Everybody wants to talk, and I completely appreciate it because I love to talk too. But listening in a way where you are not trying to fix people's problems. You are listening with empathy, what it might be like to be them, even if you haven't experienced it yourself. And listening with attunement, right? What does that mean to listen with attunement? Really noticing the specific details of what people say and connecting it to their feelings and their lives. Everyone can do this as a peer, as a friend, as a family member. And then lastly, connecting. Have you considered professional help? I know somebody. My child, my friend is actually getting wonderful help from this therapist that I know. What do you think? Do you want to consider it? If we have these conversations with our friends and our families in our communities, we will normalize seeking help.
Dr. Ash, you're terrific.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing all this information. It's great information. I hope our listeners and our viewers will take lots of it away. So
it was my pleasure. And thank you so much for highlighting this. And thank you so much for speaking about this. It's very powerful.
I appreciate
very
what you do. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Dr. Ash, thank you again. We're going to take a break, everybody. We'll wrap things up on the other side. This is Kerrigan and Company.
If you like rum, you're going to love Rumson's Rum, New England's most award-winning rum brand. Rumson creates distinctive and savory flavor profiles by hand-selecting and marrying the finest barrel-aged Caribbean rums. The spirits are then blended and finished in the New England Rum House. Choose from Rumson's Gold, Spiced, Grand Reserve, or Coffee Rum. Find Rumson's at liquor stores or ask for it at your favorite restaurant. Learn more at rumsons.com. That's rumsons.com. Rumsons. Life lived. Life enjoyed.
You won't want to miss this colorful all-new production of Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. July 8th through July 19th at North Shore Music Theater. Tickets at nsmt.org.
This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa. Take years off your face with the very latest technologies at Sienna Aesthetics in Beverly. Well, it's that time of the show when we wrap things up, but we still have some things that we want to talk about. JC Monahan keeping me company today. We've been talking mental health. This has really been phenomenal, I think. What did you think? Because you know better. You tell me.
About the discussions today?
Yes,
amazing.
About the discussions.
Amazing. Two different points of view, someone who's lived it and is trying to reach the audience, and someone who helps to treat it, and how people can reach it is the exact balance that, and one of the rare things I like about social media is you can follow both of them and sort of take what they have to offer and figure out how that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We started the show off talking about your journey.
Yes.
If you've been listening to us the entire time, you know that the doctor made reference to you writing the article, which we mentioned off at the top of the show. You did that in 2021. Talk to me about how, as a public person, that was received and what your experience has been since.
Well, I had no intention of ever writing anything, or again, I may be on TV, but I'm super private and quiet. But the short answer to it is, during the pandemic, how many times we talk about people who died by suicide? And then it was somebody that my coworkers knew. And I looked around the station and they were devastated. And I heard what you often always hear. I wish I had known. I wish I had called them. I meant to come down and visit, or whatever it was. And I went, okay, enough. Like, I'm done.
Right.
So I'm going to write this, and it maybe nobody will care, or, whatever it is. But I feel like sort of compelled to have to put it on paper to let people know that I know you're isolated from the pandemic, and you've probably gone through God knows what, and you're on a different journey, and you're not alone. And so I wrote the article. Of course, then calling family members to be like, hey, not only mom, dad, you have a daughter on TV, which took getting used to, but now I'm going to put this article out. And they were beyond incredible. Is there's not enough words for the support I got from my family and my friends. And the one thing I will say, our friendships are deeper and better than ever, because ripping that layer off, they were so much more comfortable talking to me about things with them. And I think without realizing it, without sharing certain parts of yourself, you don't seem accessible. So then they aren't going to share that part of themselves. They may have no problem sharing it, but with you, maybe it doesn't feel comfortable or safe. So all of my personal relationships deepened. I was scared to death when it came out because it's like walking naked through Copley Square. Absolutely. I mean, it's just, this is like too much for me. The outpouring of support was by far overwhelming, almost to the point of anxiety because I couldn't write everyone back, and I was so touched and honored that people read it and it mattered to them, or even if they just took the time to say thank you, or it blew my mind. And then as the years have gone, of course I worried about, well, how are my employers, and I'm not talking just NBC, I mean in general, how are they going to look at me? Am I different now? Right. Are they going to worry? Do they think I'm, unstable in any way? Those were all there, but I got to a point where I'm like, well, tough, you know what? Yeah. Because if you're going to think that, I can prove to you otherwise. If that's not enough and you're going to use that article or what you know about me against me, then go for it, and I'll go find a place that understands that is just a piece of the person who I am. Right. And then and it does happen where I'm so removed from it that sometimes I kind of forget that I even wrote it or had that, moment in life. And I'll get that sort of, oh my God, like if you Google me, if you're just getting to know me, I'm like, yeah, that's right at the top. Yeah. That's the first thing you learn about me. You don't hear any of the other stuff, but like right at the top is the article. But there was the one story I tell is I was out to dinner, and it was a year, 2 years, whatever afterwards. And he came up to me and he just said, you saved my daughter's life. And I still get chills. I'm like, okay, are you sure you're talking to the right person? I'm doing one of these. I'm like, me? And his daughter was struggling and didn't want to get help, didn't know how to get help. He read the article, gives it to his daughter, and she reads it and she goes, okay. I'll get help. Okay, what do I do? And she took that next step. So to have a dad, whether or not it's the full reality of how it helped his daughter, to have a dad express that to you, I'm like, okay, I might have walked through Copley Square naked, but somebody got something out of it, then I'm good. Yeah, absolutely. I think you impacted a lot of people as a result. And I know I said this before, I'll say it again. It's a very brave thing to do, but you're helping to do away with the stigma. You're showing that people can, like I think you said earlier, it's something I deal with. It's not who I am. Right. Who you are is the same person that we've always known you to be, a trusted journalist and meteorologist on television, and someone that we can all admire. So it's really, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you. I'm very proud of you. It still makes me super uncomfortable, just so she knows. I don't talk about myself. I want to be on that side, not this side. That's just who you are. Yeah, that is who you are. Yes. Hey, we do this thing, Fast Five. All right, my brain doesn't operate fast, but I'm going to try. I'm going to tell you, this can be very difficult. 30 seconds. Oh, Lord. It's brought to us by Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Visit your nearest branch or go to rocklandtrust.com to learn more. Are you ready? I think so. What's your superpower in the newsroom? Oh my God, do I have a superpower in the newsroom? I am, we only have 30 seconds. The only thing I will say is I will help anyone, and especially younger people, and I will stand by them and answer any question and bring them to where they need to be. She is a mentor. What's your Dunkin' order? An old-fashioned donut. I don't drink coffee. That. Oh, there you go. Favorite app on your phone? Oh, Instagram. Mm-hmm. Cape Cod or the Lakes region? Oh, Cape Cod. And what headline would describe your life today? In progress. Ah, I like that. In progress. Happily in progress. Yes. How do you feel? Honest to God, I feel great. It's one of those things when you watch your daughter go off to college and she's thriving, and then my other one is headed into high school in the fall, and you reflect back on a career that I didn't know I would have. When we start out, we don't know where it's going to go or the journey you're going to be on. So what more can I ask for? And knock on wood, they're healthy, and so this is probably the best time in my life. I will say that. I think I'm more at peace with myself in general, and I'm happy, and I'm also surrounded myself with the kind of people that only add to that. Good. And no longer am I trying to make a square, peg round hole kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So, and that, there are other square pegs for them. Like,
sure.
They're not for me.
Yep, absolutely.
Kind of
Sometimes it takes these kinds of things for us to realize that we have to live our authentic life and not live for everybody else.
And my motto, I always tell people, is this is not a dress rehearsal.
No,
this is it.
This is it.
You get one shot.
Yeah.
So, I know when you're younger, you think you have forever, but you don't. So eventually, got to stop worrying about what other people think.
100%. JC Monahan, and you can see her on NBC10. We're so glad you could be part of the show.
Thank you. It's such an honor.
This was great fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was very informative, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you.
Thanks so very much.
Please don't ever make me talk about myself again.
At least not until next time.
I will be here just for you. I would do it. Yes.
If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure you subscribe. And if you aren't following us on social media, I'd ask that you do. Thanks so much for being a part of the show, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Kerrigan & Company. To find out who will keep me company and be my co-host on the next episode, be sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Kerrigan & Company is recorded at the Big Night Studios at the TD Garden in Boston. You can view the podcast on YouTube and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure you tell a friend. The executive producer of Kerrigan & Company is David Thompson, and our social media managers are Grace Kerrigan, Colby Thompson, and Riley Thompson. See you next time.